Michael Jordan. Did not think that was going to be anything I was talking about in the year 2025. I thought he was going to play golf, make millions of dollars from Nike, and we would not be hearing about him again. But he is joining the NBA on NBC broadcast team, guys. He recorded a message that played at the NBC upfronts this week announcing his arrival and some of the other details of their NBA coverage and what they're up to on Peacock and more. It seems like the specifics of the role are relatively unclear. History with the network, of course, and some executives that he still had relationships with seem to be what got this thing over the finish line. And obviously, he no longer owns the Charlotte Hornets. So I would say now he's allowed to join a broadcast team, but Tom Brady has proven you can do whatever the hell you want. Ben, how much are we going to see Michael Jordan's face this fall / the next 11 years on NBC?
I don't think a lot, because I think if it was a lot, like NBC would be shouting it from the rooftops, and all we have right now is a title of special contributor, which is like just a step above intern. So I don't have particularly high expectations for getting Michael Jordan on like a weekly or even bi-weekly basis. But when he's on, it's going to be a big deal. Like whatever he's doing, whether it's analysis in the studio, whether it's pre-produced packages, like whatever he's doing, because I think the thing about Michael Jordan, like people don't realize, is for somebody who was at one point the most famous person on earth, like he's pretty much kept a low profile since retiring 22 years ago after his playing career. Like this is not somebody who has been in the public spotlight. This is not somebody who's done any media work. This is somebody who's only been interviewed probably a handful of times relative to his fame since retiring. And so whatever he does from NBC, like it's going to have flashing bright lights and going to be a really big deal.
Drew, this feels a little bit closer. Now, again, we don't know how extensive it'll actually be, but Ben and I did a roundup of the NBA hires in the broadcasting space last week when Amazon announced like its full team. And I said, these NBC announced the people we know are going to be there don't feel very Football Night in America-ish, right? Like the pomp and circumstance doesn't seem to be there when you think of Bob Costas and even like a Tony Dungy, who's at least like a father figure of the sport, not exactly as famous as Michael Jordan. But this one feels a lot closer to the type of big stuff that they've been telling us they were going to do. So I like it from that standpoint, at least.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously they're playing into the nostalgia of it all, and I know that's been, talked about exhaustively now, but to me, I think back to The Last Dance and kind of one of the first looks, at least, our generation, Brendon, who didn't grow up watching Michael Jordan, kind of one of the first looks we got of him, speaking candidly. I know that was like a self-produced, project. So a lot of it, he kind of got final cut on that, but that's what makes this role with NBC so interesting to me. Are we going to hear Michael Jordan opining on today's players, or are we just going to see him in some pre-produced packages, maybe giving some softball interviews to some current players? I mean, either way, I'll be honest, it's going to be interesting, whatever he's doing with NBC. Yeah. But I mean, just, for the mere fact that it's Michael Jordan talking about modern day basketball. But if this is just a few one-off packages that, come on during, the Eastern Conference Finals or whatever. I think this is something that NBC did to win the upfronts. I'm not really sure this is going to be all that relevant to their overall coverage. And they can
always put out in October when they're announcing their schedule and whatever else, they can say NBA on NBC headlined by Michael Jordan and all-star team. We all can see how that's going to play out. But I would say the most likely outcome is it's probably a lot more of that. Maybe when they, after football season, transport over to the Sunday night, premiere package that they're going to try to put together, Basketball Night in America. I don't know if that's what they'll actually call it, but that's what they've kind of been promoting it as. Maybe he zooms in on a big screen, and Maria Taylor asks him 3 questions, and they keep it moving. But the Dan Patrick show I listened to this morning, he basically said he could see players chomping at the bit to basically get to talk to him, and almost flip it where, I don't know, Tyrese Halliburton gets to ask Michael Jordan questions. Like, that's almost the selling point, more so than MJ interviewing anybody, because, again, we don't even know if he'd be good at doing an interview. I mean, the Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes thing was, oh, wow, they're in the same room together, but it wasn't exactly compelling content because Tom Brady's not, Frost Nixon out there. Like, it's just not what the deal is. So I don't know what this will look like, but Ben, I mean, this is closer to what we were talking about last week in terms of the flash we were expecting from NBC, if nothing else.
Yeah, I mean, this definitely is the headline to come out of all of these NBA hirings we were just talking about before we started recording, just about like this flood of NBA talent now everybody's picking their teams now. You have Vince Carter now off the board, obviously Reggie Miller, but Michael Jordan's like one of one. This is the biggest name to happen in this cycle, regardless of how big or more likely how small this role is. But yeah, I mean, I think the worst thing they can do to me is make this about Michael Jordan. Like, I think we've all kind of hinted at, like, we want to hear Michael Jordan talk about today's game. The worst thing that could happen is if this is Michael Jordan getting interviewed about Michael Jordan, and it just feels like a package that could be on NBA TV, reflecting on the 1998 Eastern Conference Finals just as much as today's game. Like, we want to see something about today's game, hear Michael Jordan weigh in, because other than his tenure as the Charlotte Bobcats owner, like, we really don't have like any indication about what Michael Jordan even thinks about the NBA in 2020.
That's what I was going to say, is like, in the back of my head, I'm sitting here thinking, like, I'm not sure how much he keeps up with basketball these days. And then I remember he was an active NBA owner until like 2 years ago. So I would hope
active might be strong.
Yeah, active might be strong, and, mileage may vary on how good of an owner he necessarily was. Like, as the Hornets are once again in the lottery, as we're watching last night. Not that that's his fault, but kind of still is. So, yeah, I think, it will draw attention whenever and whatever he does. They have the All-Star game. They have conference finals games. There will be opportunities, and I would imagine it's more of those premier moments rather than a weekly recurring, what MJ thinks about the pick and roll that, that 19th best team in the league is running. Ben, I want to circle back on a segment here that we have not come to in a minute, that you and I were trying to remember what we renamed it. Did it come to you? It's the Kyle Hamilton of the week until we can recall that or find some sort of transcript to prove us otherwise. But is that what we're sticking with?
It's Kyle Hamilton for now.
Okay. So this is it could be any big man in the NBA, but it is this playoffs. Mitchell Robinson of the New York Knicks or Steven Adams should shoot free throws like Rick Barry. The underhand granny free throws. Anytime somebody gets hacked or struggles at the free throw line in any sort of way, I literally saw the New York Post called up Rick Barry and had him talk about why Mitchell Robinson should shoot free throws the way that he does. We cannot
Rick Barry was excited about that.
I bet he was. He likes to talk for sure, but probably not super hard to get a hold of him. But I just love that for 60 years now, this is the best we can do. Big man struggles to shoot free throws, shoot it granny style, underhand, content for a week.
Well, it was always, this was a Giannis conversation at one point, I know, and I think it was a Shaq conversation at one point too. The difference there, though, is like those guys are two of the best players in the league at their respective times, Shaq and Giannis. So it's like, if anybody could get away with shooting granny style, it's those two. If it's Steven Adams or Mitchell Robinson doing it, that's going to be what they're known for the rest of their careers.
To be fair, I did watch Mitchell Robinson airball a free throw and then like fall to the ground, clutching his face in complete embarrassment. So I get it. But I just wish maybe we could just do a little better. I don't know. Maybe analyze his minutes or talk about a different sort of lineup thing, but no, just call up Rick Barry. I also have something else we need to establish here, and I'll bring Drew in. We're going to name a new segment, okay? Because I've had this one bookmarked for a while. It's just the overblown story of the week, something that absolutely did not matter as much as the sports media conversation would have you think that it did. And I have two candidates. I have blowing white smoke, which is the entirety of the news cycle around Pope Leo being a Cubs fan and White Sox fan, or being at the World Series once upon a time, and Villanova grad, et cetera, or just torpedo bat of the week.
I think torpedo bat probably has a little bit more staying power.
That gets my vote. I think that embodies exactly what you're going for.
Yeah.
Okay. I was personally over the Pope Leo conversation after tweet number like 38. So maybe that's just me, but
you lasted longer than I did.
Okay. Yeah. So it's not just me. But I don't want everything to be of the week. So maybe we can workshop it. Maybe we just call it like torpedo batting as a segment. I don't know. Okay. So we'll have to, do we have a nominee for this week, Ben? Is there anything?
The torpedo bat of the week would be the Pope Francis
okay, yeah, I guess
the Pope discussion,
in this case, he's not the name, but he gets to have the inaugural title of the week. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I was thinking of the torpedo bat stuff because I opened my Yahoo Fantasy Baseball app today, and Anthony Volpe still has a little icon from when that whole saga was playing out, and I'm like, yeah, I don't think that quite. He didn't become the fantasy MVP that people quite told me he was going to after the first week when he was, the poster child of that news story.
I mean, there's a chance Jordan Hudson becomes a torpedo bat, right? Like it's.
Well, we have a different one for her that I haven't told you about. This is the Jordan Hudson line.
Okay.
It's the touchy. Where do we come in on the? Yeah. Can we talk about this types of stories? We haven't come up with a new one, so I haven't thrown this one at you either. But if we're just emptying the holster on the segments that may or may not come up again, that one I already had pinpointed. If there's kind of like a personal life thing, are we sure? How does it really overlap with sports? Are we allowed to talk about it? That's the Jordan Hudson line.
Yeah. That definitely fits to a T there.
Okay. All right. So we're making our way. We're getting them named one by one here. Well, they'll all pop back up before long.